In 1776, Thomas Paine wrote Common Sense, a pamphlet regarded as one of the most influential catalysts for the American Revolution. It was a work of big ideas that at once championed notions of independence and unity. Today, a new notion of common sense is sweeping America. It is called the Common Core State Standards Initiative. If you haven't heard of it, you may wonder why it's taken so long to get here.
As America grew, it became perhaps the most diverse nation on earth. Each of the 50 states is almost like a country unto itself, with different experiences and characteristics. This led in part to different education standards from one state to the next. What a third grader might learn in California, for example, could be quite different than her same-aged cousin in Pennsylvania. That might have worked at an earlier time, but as the world has changed, communication has been revolutionized, and economies have to compete on a global scale.
Americans, including our youngest citizens, need every advantage we can give them.
We're in a global marketplace these days, and we're competing for everything, and we've really got to have the best curriculum. And if we're all doing our own thing, it leads to a lot of discontinuity.
Common Core standards are truly benchmarked against international standards, and I think once our students master the Common Core, they'll be well positioned to compete in this global economy in which we find ourselves.
I like to be prepared, and I usually go ahead and get information about the next school. What do they have? And even with all the information you try to acquire as a parent, the move's still hard on the family, it's still hard on the kids, and it does not prepare you for the big changes that comes changing from one state to the other one in education.
Moving 3 different times in high school, twice in my junior year, was really hard. A few times I thought I wasn't going to be able to graduate because of the jumbled mess that credits had turned into. Essentially, they couldn't sort out whether or not I was going to pass or fail because it was just a disorganized mess going from school to school, whether or not I had actually taken these classes, if the credits would go cleanly over or not.
Initially, our student responded very well. He was very eager, very excited at a new school. As time progressed and we began to prep him for standardized testing, he became very reluctant, and we were also very worried at the time how successful he was going to be.
The Common Core State Standards elevate teaching and learning. It provides the foundation for ongoing academic success for all students. American students and their parents need to know that upon completion of high school, they are fully prepared for a collegiate career and that their educational experience is globally recognized for excellence.
From our perspective, and I serve in higher education, students are students, and whether they're growing up in a military family or they're growing up in another family, what we expect youngsters to be able to do and to know is the same, irrespective of where they're coming from, in order to be admitted to universities and in order, most importantly, to be successful.
Of about 2 million children whose parents are currently serving in the active duty forces, the National Guard, and the reserves, about 1.2 million of those children are in grades K through 12. And some of the specific challenges they face really have to do with, increased school moves. They move about 3 times more frequently than their civilian classmates. And that's especially true for kids whose parents are serving in the active duty forces. But it can also be true for kids whose parents are serving in the reserve component, especially if they move because, a parent's deployed or there's other things going on with the family. And 3 times more frequently, what does that mean? What that means is an average of 6 to 9 schools from kindergarten through grade 12. And all children have those school moves, like from 5th grade to 6th grade and 8th grade to 9th grade. This is in addition to that. And what we know is when kids move and they change schools frequently, there is a turbulence effect in terms of their academic continuity.
From the point of view of these military kids and their parents, it just makes so much sense to have the continuity in that curriculum from kindergarten through 12th grade, so that no matter where you're stationed, when you move, you've got some confidence that what you've been learning is going to transfer smoothly into your new location.
Student to student really helped out because it gave us a chance to connect with other military kids, somebody who had gone through similar situations and had trouble that everybody else has, moving across the country and basically taking the risks that some people do.
You know, military families want to hit the ground running and be connected with their community. They also want to be certain that their students are well connected academically. And so they want to know what's going on with their school. They want to know up front what's expected of their student in terms of academics and extracurricular activities also.
A common misconception is that the Common Core standards are federally driven. This is not the case. The Council of Chief State School Officers and the National Governors Association Center for Best Practices have worked for several years with 48 states, 2 territories, and the District of Columbia. States voluntarily decide whether they will or will not adapt the standards and how they will implement them.
The notion that these were handed down by the federal government and imposed on everybody is just not true. In fact, it was a very collaborative process involving literally hundreds of collegiate faculty and high school teachers, middle school and elementary teachers and administrators from all over the country. What the standards do is they say, here are the things that we expect students to know at a particular point in their education. But how you teach them those things becomes the individual discretion and skills and approaches of individual teachers, individual school districts, however that is worked out. So the standards tell you the what, but the individual teachers or districts or states, wherever that authority lies, figure out the how.
One of the things that I have seen is that there are places where the rigor is not there, and we need that for our society in general. The children need to be challenged to the max.
I moved about middle of my junior year and then moved again beginning my senior year. And when I got to the school my senior year, I found myself ahead of both of my language arts and math classes. We had already read the material in language arts and English. I had already done it. It was somewhat boring because I knew everything. I didn't have to study. The tests were just something to pass the time. And it ended up being that I had to teach my math class a few times because the teacher was absent and I was the one who would have to fill the class in. And they would talk to me like, why are you the one teaching the class? And I'm like, because the teacher told me to. And it wouldn't be that bad except that math is not my strong subject. I am currently in developmental math in college. So that just, I guess, says something.
So for all students attending schools in these states that are participating, it's going to be a much more rigorous course of study and will enable them to leave high school much more prepared for what comes next. And our military students and other students who happen to be transient, they're going to be moving from place to place, and there are going to be a common set of standards that they'll be required to master. So it's not going to be adjusting, at least in the areas of English language arts and mathematics for the time being, and that'll make the transition much easier for them. So easier for students to move from state to state, but also much more rigorous for students who are moving and who aren't moving.
The rigor of a consistent curriculum would help raise the bar for American students. Would be teaching more math, would be teaching English language arts at a deeper level. So it would help our children to compete globally.
We know from looking at comparisons of how our students in the United States do against students in many, many other countries on what's called the PISA exams, that our students don't fare so well. And in part it's because we haven't been teaching them the right stuff, but most of us feel very strongly these new standards will satisfy all of those requirements and allow American kids to be very competitive with their counterparts from around the world.
This common sense approach to promoting excellence in our schools and the educational experience of our children has been adopted in 46 of the 50 United States, as well as the Department of Defense Education Activity Schools.
The Common Core State Standards will help provide consistency for families in transition, increasing predictability and easing integration into a new education environment, but also makes the educational experience for all students more fruitful.
When we agree on those basics, then we begin to have a clearer picture, or kids learning what they need to learn when they need to learn it. And that means all kids. Kids who are struggling, kids who are in special programs, kids who are, able learners. We need clarity, and that's true for military connected kids as well as for other kids. And military kids aren't the only kids that move a lot. There's plenty of children who experience school moves. It's just that if we can get it right for military connected kids, it's going to also help us understand and get it right for other kids.
If we believe all students can learn, then let's go with it and make sure they have a rigorous curriculum and give them the support to learn.